So this is the room half done. You can see what I've done here is taken out the floor completely. What happened to the floor? Well, actually I have reused it and created a new ceiling. And you can see up there there's a new ceiling along with some extra insulation. And this has allowed me to put in some downlighters. Above this ceiling here is an attic conversion, and you cannot get into the floor, so this just allows me to drop that down and add some extra insulation. Over in this corner was where there was a ton of mould. So what we've done here is taken off all the plaster, and you can see we've stripped the plaster right back to the wall. I did that using a fabulous tool, which I used to borrow from a friend, but last time I borrowed it I kind of overdid the friend thing, and so I ended up buying my own. I'll show you what it is. This is called the Titan STS drill, and it's about £70, comes from Screwfix, and it comes with loads of tools along with it. So screwdrivers, drills to go through the wall, and also a chisel. It's an electric hammer chisel, which is absolutely fantastic. It doesn't spin, it just whacks against your wall and will strip off almost anything. So I use that to take a lot of the plaster off. It does make a lot of noise and a lot of dust, so you have to use ear protection, but it's an amazing tool. It also allows me to, as you'll see here, fix the damp problem in the house, which is essentially what you do is you drill 12mm holes all the way along, and then you fill those holes with what's called damp solve, which is just a cream that you fill in the holes, which then over time gets absorbed into all your mortar, which will create a damp barrier. In addition to this, you can see I've already started to put plasterboard panels back on the wall, but instead of the traditional method I used panels called Thermaline, which you can see here have a insulation backing on them. And the insulation backing is actually waterproof, and you don't need to fix it to the wall with any nails or anything. You just literally glue it to the wall using what's called pink grip. So this is pink grip dry fix, and it's literally for gluing drywall to the wall. In Britain it's called plasterboard, so it's literally for fixing drywall to the wall. This here actually can be used with a gun, or it can be used with its own connector. I thought being able to use a reusable gun was a great idea, because then you can use half a can of the stuff. But unfortunately the guns always get gunged up. Even if you use the gun cleaner, it ends up wrecking your guns, and spending more money on guns. So what is pink grip? It is essentially spray foam, the usual stuff you use for insulation, except it doesn't expand so much. So when you spray it to the back of the plasterboard, it expands a little bit, and then you just stick the whole thing to the wall, and it just sticks on and glues your whole plasterboard to the wall. It has a great advantage that there are no nails, no screws, which actually gives you additional insulation, because when you put screws into something, they're metal and they conduct heat, so you have no heat conduction at all from those panels that are stuck onto the wall. And you're also not going to get any moisture penetrating at all, because there's nothing actually connecting it to the walls except for the glue, which is completely waterproof. On the window wall here I've got 34. I've attached 50mm insulation into the homemade frame that I put onto the ceiling here. The actual frame is screwed onto the existing joists that are above the previous ceiling, and you can see I've just put these little screws in to hold the 50mm insulation up there, so there's nothing more difficult than that. I added my own false ceiling here. I've been able to put these nice downlighters in. These modern downlighters are non-replaceable bulbs, so you can just replace the whole unit. They don't have any screws, you just literally put the wire in it, and you just press a little button and the wire goes straight into them. You can go to a lovely lighting shop and buy all sorts of fancy lighting for your room, but to be honest with you, nice downlighters, nothing better than that. Of course, a bedroom, downlighters have a bit of a problem if you're lying in bed. You'll see these lights shining in your eyes, so you'll see later I've got a solution to that problem as well. Downlighters give you a lovely even light across your entire room. You can see I haven't put them all in yet, but soon you'll see me adding some extra ones. I have a set of battery powered tools. I've discovered that the battery powered saw, a Ryobi saw I use, is a great tool, and I can use it all sorts of places where you don't have any wires, you don't have to plug it in. But there's a real bit of a problem that the battery doesn't last that long, or if you're going through hard material, then it tends to seize up. So I just brought this from Screwfix. You can also get it from B&Q. It costs £60, and it was quite cheap. There's a lot, you know, you can buy ones up to £200. But I've been using this for a week or so now, and an absolutely fabulous tool. It's got this Evolution blade on it, which can cut through metal and wood at the same time, which saves you changing blades. The other thing about buying a maintenance powered one is that usually the blades are slightly bigger, and if you're cutting through joists, then you'll find that the battery powered ones won't go through them. I'm actually using it also to cut through the insulation, which is a great tool for doing that. It rips through it really quickly. Trying to use a knife, which is slightly less messy, is really difficult, especially the thicker your insulation is. When you're using power tools, always use air defenders. For a while I was using earplugs. Earplugs, you'd end up pulling them in and out all the time, and you end up just not bothering for a while. Not a good idea. I've damaged my own ears by not using ear defenders, so highly recommend using them. Get a nice big set like this, and you can pull them off and on really quickly. So this has got to be one of my favourite tools. It's called Krieg. I don't know if you can get them in the UK. I ordered it from the States. Unfortunately it's just in inches. But what it can do is it can take a simple circular saw and turn it into a sawmill. It'll basically cut a straight line on anything, as long as you've got the space to use the tool. And what I'm going to use it here is to cut 40cm insulation to fit into the floor joist that we have here. So what you do with the tool is you just simply put your circular saw into it. And you screw it down, and then you set the size of cut you want on the gauge here. You can go up to 24 inches. It's fabulous. I'm doing 15 3/4, which is 40 centimeters, which is the size of my joist again. What you do is you just take the tool, you put it down on the material, and you just start cutting, and it cuts the exact 40 centimeter line down the middle of my material. And there we have it. That's that 40 centimeter cut. I didn't cut it too deep because I'm cutting on my joist here and don't have my table. Cut out the 40 centimeter joint. There we have it. So when I stripped all the plaster off the wall here, I had to take all the framing off the window frame here, as you can see. What's interesting about this is that the cavity is wide open here. So what I've done here is put 25mm insulation in the wall, in the cavity. I have managed to put it all the way around, in the top, and the right hand side, and in the bottom as well. Of course there's wall ties in there, so you can put it exactly in that to cut it into slices and feed it in beside the wall ties. And then I've packed in a little bit more spray insulation around the edge there to keep it packed in tight. So hopefully that will keep the wall a bit warmer and hopefully reduce my condensation on my window. Not only have I got 25mm on the wall, I've got 25mm in the insulated plasterboard, so that's given me extra 50mm insulation on that wall. So I've got 50mm on that wall, I've got 50mm in the ceiling, and I'm going to put 50mm in the floor, and there's about 35mm on this wall here as well. So that should make a big difference. I used to have a radiator right here, that I've taken that off, and I'm going to replace the radiator on the other side. Got a fairly small radiator there. I'm taking that out as well, putting a new radiator, a single radiator on the wall here. That should heat the whole room now that it's all nice and cozy insulated. Here is a vent coming through here under the floor for ventilation, but wait till you see what's on the outside. So here's the vent on the outside. Of course I've got a lovely monoblock driveway that was installed before I moved in here. And of course they monoblock right up to the front of the house, which is something you shouldn't really do. And you can see the vent here slightly below the monoblock, so they've kind of dug it in a little bit. So all the water just runs off straight through the vent into my walls, and then of course rising damp into the bedroom. So most of the damp was coming in through this wall, and when I pulled off the plaster I found behind the wall, you know, an old fireplace. Interestingly, the fireplace itself, sort of a low profile chimney breast. So the chimney breast is not actually part of the cavity wall. So the actual breast is connected to the outside wall. So all the moisture from the outside can actually travel through the brick into the chimney breast itself. And in 1981 this was kind of covered over and plastered over, because that connected the plaster from the chimney breast all the way into the side walls, and that's what's causing a lot of the damp in the room as well. And so you can see what I've done here. So I've covered the chimney breast with damp proof sheeting. I was able to wrap it around into the cavity and then sort of squirt a bit of insulation in to lock it in. The previous plaster was measuring about 30% on a moisture meter, so there's quite a lot of damp coming through that wall and then spreading around the room. So this should completely solve this problem. Got a damp proof course over the chimney breast, and then of course you've got insulated plasterboard on top of that, which has got its own vapor barrier too. And also there's a bit of air movement behind there now as well, because it's not quite in profile with the actual wall. Any dampness in there is gonna wick away anyway. In addition, there was still bits of the fireplace still in. The ground of the fireplace was right up to the floor level, so I've dug that all out and I've filled that with insulation as well. So there's a big huge gap between the ground and the subfloor. Unfortunately the actual floor, which as you say is now on the ceiling, it was in very good condition. 1930s wood, beautiful pieces of timber that are in perfect condition, so the moisture wasn't really getting into the floor, but this will just make sure nothing's going to come through. You can see here how this wall has been repaired previously. All the little holes along here is where damp proofing has been squirted into the walls to prevent water getting up this wall. Unfortunately, there was these massive wardrobes along this back wall here, which is where all my clothes were getting mouldy. And you know, when the damp course was put in, they couldn't get obviously behind the wardrobes because they were still there. So this wall was nice and dry down at the bottom here. There's a radiator in front of it as well. But of course the wall behind the wardrobes was still soaking wet and the room was smelling of mould. So believe it or not, our room had no sockets on the walls. There were actually two sockets. One is here, which was behind our headboard, which is actually built into the wall. You can see it now, but it was covered up. And then there was another socket over there by the fireplace, but of course there was a big set of cupboards. There's one of the cupboards, 7 of them against that wall. So the socket was behind those cupboards, completely inaccessible. So I'm going to try and add a couple of new sockets in this new plasterboard. So there's going to be one here, and I'll not make it right in front of the window because maybe one day Put some French doors in here, going out to a lovely front porch. So I'm going to put it right here, off to the right a little bit, so that if I ever need to plug in a laptop or plug in a Hoover, we can do so. There are two types of socket holders you can put on the wall. There's this plastic one which clips into plasterboard, which is actually really easy to fit if you don't have insulated plasterboard. And then you have the regular metal box which you have to screw to the wall itself. They're quite a bit fiddlier, but obviously if you have want to put your socket, if you want to put your box on the wall beforehand, then that'd be the way to do it. Looking at this, it is just about the right thickness to get the plastic box on, so I'm going to go with that instead. It comes in 2.4 metre sections. Most modern houses are either 2.4 metres high ceilings or slightly lower, but this is an extra 30 centimetres high from the 1930s, which makes the room nice and airy, but obviously the plasterboard doesn't go right down to the bottom. So what I've done is I've glued the plasterboard up as high as I can, which is absolutely excellent because that allows me to put the floor back in, or a new floor, and then I can put that last piece of plasterboard on the bottom. Obviously I have to take joints and plaster it, which won't be great, but obviously it makes my job easier. So the electric socket's just going to be slightly below that top level board. Now this is another amazing tool, which I call the plunge saw. This is a Bosch PMF 190E. I don't think they make that anymore, but excellent tool for cutting square holes, cutting into anything. It has a really thin blade, which makes a lot less mess. Not super powerful, but great for cutting sockets, cutting anything in plasterboard, and also great for cutting underneath things. Excellent for laying laminate. One of my favourite tools. And there we have a temporary socket. Obviously we'll connect that properly with a new socket on the wall once we've got the wall board back on and the floors in. But I've connected it up into the ring main, and it goes across the floor to where the old socket on the other side is. So you can see I've got the 50mm insulation on the floor, and then I've started to lay that first row of chipboard screwed down to the existing floor joists.
I was going to take that out for
So here's my new radiator, and I'm trying to make it so that the pipes come from the wall rather than from the floor, which makes it a lot easier to lay laminate, because it turns out with a brick wall it makes it very difficult to do that. But I'm going to give it a shot anyway. Blue wood chip.
To be finished. I'm breathing it. Stop.
Awesome. Thank you. It's kind of boring, isn't it?
What is it?
Plaster. What I covered my egg in.
Oh. Oh, my arm's getting tired.
What?
My arm's getting tired.
What, just holding the video camera?
Yeah, because it has to go up. My arms have to be like really close to me. Can't get a good angle on it. Ooh. Fancy.
Isn't that a thing of beauty?
Can I stop now?
Yeah. This is the cornicing for adding the LED lighting, and you see this is extruded polystyrene, which I've just painted before I put it up, so it's a lot easier to paint. It's very lightweight and very brittle, but I'm hoping it'll be okay because no one will ever touch it. Here are the wardrobe pieces, and I'm going to have to rebuild all 7 of these wardrobes. And here's my cornice lighting, just temporary connection, it looks pretty nice.
Mom is really perceptive, and my might slip up and reveal something. Look, this isn't just about me feeling awkward around my ex. It's more about if I'm awkward around my ex, every